very quick way to convert a color image into a black and white image. And the first thing that I'm going to do, as always, is to make a background copy. So you can do that multiple ways. You can do click and drag your copy to the one that sits next to the bin and says create new layer, or you can just right click and it will give you a duplicate layer. Okay, so we go to there. So the next thing I'm now going to do is I'm going to choose another adjustment layer. I'm going to use hue and saturation. Click OK. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove all of that. Alright, so I've taken that out and you can see it's gone to black and white. I think that looks a little bit flat for my tastes. I don't think there's enough tonal range or dynamic range. There's not enough contrast between the blacks and the whites, and which gives it a slightly flat appearance. So I'm going to change that by using a curves layer. So up here, new adjustment layer, curves. Click OK. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the top one here, and that will allow me to modify the curve selectively. So the first thing that I am going to do is I think that these dark areas need to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to click and drag. All right, and we can see that that's now taking that down a little bit. All right, so that's a little bit too much. All right, and as I release that, I can still see there's a little bit of detail in there, and that's good. So the next thing I want to do is to find a mid-tone. All right, so let's say that we think that is a mid-tone, and let's move. So click and drag. All right, so there it starts to look a little bit too milky. There looks better. Okay, good. And now I want to sort out the highlights, and here I think that's the brightest part of the picture, so I'm going to click and I'm going to drag. Alright, so we can see that moving. Alright, so that's now just given that a little bit more contrast, and that now looks much better for my tastes and for my liking. So, but one of the things that I would like to do now is I would like to make this picture, I'd like to make it warmer. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten all of these, or I'm going to create a new layer from everything that I've got here. And I can do that by pressing Command, Option, Shift and E. Alright, so you can see that that gives me a new layer. Now if I turn that off, alright, that makes absolutely no difference whatsoever, because all it's done is it's given me a new layer of everything that is below here. Alright, so what I now want to do is I want to make some other adjustments to it. So I'm going to go to Camera, Raw Filter, and here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to increase the clarity a little bit on this. Some people use this as the opportunity to increase sharpness, but I tend to do that when I bring the picture in, so I'm not going to do that, but that's up to you to find your own digital workflow. So I'm going to click OK. So, and we know that this layer now is filled with pixels, so there's quite a lot that I can now do with this. But the only thing that I really want to do is I would like to warm it up a little bit. So I'm going to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and I'm going to go to Photo Filter. All right, and you can see immediately that has warmed that up. All right, so let me take it. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you the before and after. So I don't want it as high as that, so I'm going to go for a warming filter of 81. And if I move that all the way to the right, you can see the difference that that makes. But I like these things to be quite subtle, so I'm going to take that in a little bit. All right, and there is about right for me. So I'm just going to show you that full screen. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so that's the finished product, but let's see what it looked like when we started. All right, so that's where we came in. We desaturated, we boosted the contrast and made the picture stand out a little bit more, give it a little bit more pop. And here we went to photo filter, and just the one last thing that I think I'm going to do is, now that I've made my adjustments to all of the mid-tones and the shadow areas and the highlights, what I'm going to do is I think I'm just going to brighten it up a little bit. All right, not a lot. And when you brighten a picture up, you also lower the contrast as well. So that's something to be aware of. But in this particular case, I think I'm going to leave it as it is. So that is one method of making a colour picture black and white and making some changes to the tonality and warming it up to give it a finish that just ensures that it sits comfortably on the screen and gives a little bit of depth. Okay, thank you very much for listening.